So, Dawntrail is coming soon in a few months, and there's been a lot of discussion on Reddit, Twitch chats, and even the official forums on what people want from their jobs in 7.0. I wanted to share my 2 cents as to what changes I'd like to see in Black Mage, as well as predictions for what they might add to the job in 7.0. First, let's cover one thing that is very apparently clear for Black Mage. Its lower level experience just sucks. It pales in comparison to max level 90 gameplay. At level 70, Black Mage is heavily outclassed by Red Mage and Summoner, and this is very apparent doing the level 70 ultimates Yukab and Uwu. So what's wrong with level 70 Black Mage? Firstly, you don't have Umbral Soul. Seriously, I can't believe they didn't do this in Endwalker, but Umbral Soul is such an amazing quality of life spell in dungeons, especially ultimates with all of the downtime. Without Umbral Soul, the downtime phases in Yukab and Uwu are just so awkward for Black Mage, and getting synced to a lower level and not having Umbral Soul is kind of a pain in dungeons as well, as you're just spamming Transpose to maintain your Enochian and you're just stuck at one stack of Astral Fire or Umbral Ice. So I would appreciate if they lowered the level that you obtain Umbral Soul, perhaps the same level that you get Umbral Hearts, which is I think level 58 with Blizzard 4. Second, Sharpcast being a 60-second cooldown at level 70 is very much an annoyance, while only having one charge of it. I would like to see some of that quality of life shifted to lower levels, perhaps just having it 30 seconds at all times. And lastly, one charge of Polyglot, and no instant cast Foul. Now, Foul being instant was not something I had expected we'd see in Endwalker, but it did happen. And it makes it feel even worse when you're running level 70 stuff now with hardcast Foul and it not being instant. You have very few weaving tools at level 70, so level 70 Black Mage has to clip a lot just to move, for example to use triple cast or swift cast. So with all that being said, I hope they move some of these quality of life changes to earlier levels. Now, let's talk about what we can expect for Dawntrail. Based on Endwalker, it is likely that we will get 3 to 4 new skills and 5 traits. Now, historically for Black Mage, every expansion, it has gotten some pretty game-changing, I want to say, quality of life changes. Now, Stormblood gave triple cast, allowing for more movement options. Shadowbringers brought Aspect Mastery, Despair, 30-second Sharpcast, Umbral Soul, and Xenoglossy, allowing for Black Mage to actually be able to keep up Enochian during downtime without spamming Transpose, and a super powerful spell that functioned as a movement tool. Endwalker brought the Aspect Mastery trait to all levels, and that shows that they're willing to take quality of life that they put to higher levels and bringing it down to lower levels. They also added a Sharpcast charge, they increased our proc durations for Firestarter and Thunder proc, and they gave us 2 charges of triple cast for more movement and added Paradox, which was a super useful movement tool, especially in Umbral Ice, and helped to alleviate mana tick issues that the job had. So it's only natural that we'd expect there may be similar style of quality of life changes to Dawntrail. But what is even left as a quality of life change? Let's go over some potential changes that we could see in Dawntrail. First, let's talk about Umbral Soul. Spamming Umbral Soul during long periods of downtime is kind of annoying. I think a lot of people would prefer that you can just press Umbral Soul once and it would freeze your Umbral Ice timer at max duration, so you would just need to press it enough to get to 3 Umbral Hearts and 3 stacks of Umbral Ice. And this would be a very welcoming change for fights that put you in the down for the count space for cutscenes, such as T, Top, P8S, E8S, these all come to mind. And some of these cutscenes are designed just long enough that you lose Enochian, so it's very frustrating for Black Mage players. This would allow Black Mage to have reopeners that don't require you to clip Swiftcast or Triple Cast at the start of the phase. Black Mage is already disproportionately affected by down for the count mechanics. You'd also be able to potentially generate Polyglot stacks during this time period, but maybe they'll take that away if it ends up being too strong. Second, Ley Lines. Ley Lines is an interesting ability because while it is a 2-minute cooldown, it lasts for 30 seconds. Looking at the Pandemonium raids in general, mechanics seem to have been developed on or around every 2 minutes into a fight, and it does make it awkward sometimes to get full ley line duration in certain mechanics. Some examples of this throughout Endwalker include P10S during the Bonds 1 buff window, P12S Phase 2 during Pangenesis, P12S Phase 1 during Superchain Theory, P7S during Inviolate Purgation, P4S during Act 4, DSR during Gigaflare's Edge, and top is a big one with Unlimited Wave Cannon, and I'm sure we could list quite a few more. There are a lot of options here for potential changes to ley lines. The ones that I see as most likely are either A, some sort of button that is the opposite of between the lines, which would pull your ley lines towards you. I feel like if this existed, it would probably be a one-time usage skill every time you use ley lines that pulls your ley lines to you. I'm thinking kind of like Gwen from League of Legends if any of you guys have played that. Second, the Circle of Power buff that you get from ley lines could have a timer associated with it that's constantly refreshed while you're inside the ley lines. As there is a timer on it, you would be able to step out for a few seconds while maintaining the buff, allowing for bobbing and weaving in and out of ley lines if a mechanic demands it, like Superchain Theory 1. Next, the elephant in the room, spell speed Black Mage, and the acquisition rate of polyglot stacks. If you've played Black Mage enough, you've probably realized that spell speed Black Mage has fallen out of favor quite a bit this whole expansion. In general, crit builds are heavily favored for numerous reasons. First, crit builds have higher highs in terms of damage, making it favorable for parsers and speedrunners. It also has longer recast times, making you able to cover more distance with each instant cast. This is great for mechanics like Purgation in P7S, Wrath Flames in DSR, and Wave Cannons in top. While a spell speed Black Mage will get more casts of Fire 4 and Despair over an encounter, one thing will be identical: Xenoglossy usages. And given how much of a heavy hitter Xenoglossy is, it heavily favors crit builds. Currently, Black Mages get a polyglot stack every 30 seconds. What if this timer instead scaled with spell speed? So if you stacked more spell speed, you'd acquire more Xenos. This would actually create interesting decision making, for example, picking certain GCDs in a fight to get an extra Xenoglossy before a phase change. Also, there is a very real possibility that Xenoglossy and other big hits like Hyosho from Ninja become auto-crit in 7.0, so you'd really need more of them as a spell speed Black Mage to even compete with a crit mage in this case. Also, as an aside, one of the other perks of a spell speed build is that your dots are supposed to be stronger, but this multiplier is kinda weak. Even with the high spell speed build recommended in patch 6.55, your dot multiplier is only about a 13 to 14% increased damage, compared to a 3% increase that you get on the crit build. This would be something in the realm of 60 to 80 DPS increase on your Thunder dot, which is pretty negligible when random crit RNG makes more of a difference than this. They could make the interaction spell speed has with dots be stronger or more interesting in some way. The interaction that spell speed builds have with MP ticks is also a big factor. MP ticks in this game work on a static 3-second interval, meaning you can do transpose lines with fewer instant casts using a slower crit set. Square Enix could potentially sort any mana tick issues by tying MP regeneration and Umbral Ice to casting ice spells. However, I worry what this would do for Black Mage optimization. They are no stranger to getting feedback like this. It turns out that in one of the 14-hour broadcasts back in October of 2022, someone did ask this very question. The translation here was provided by the Balanced Discord server. So the question was about Black Mage. Since their MP regeneration tick is not constant, it makes it hard to play Black Mage as you have to keep monitoring your MP bar. Is it possible to make the MP recovering timing constant? And Yoshi P's response was that they could do nothing about this since MP was tied to the server timer, which is commonly referred to in the community as the server tick. The interesting thing here is wanting to make it so that it's not necessary. Does this mean that something like making Blizzard 3 and Blizzard 4 just grant mana immediately upon casting? Or maybe it means Paradox will grant mana when you cast it in Umbral Ice. There's a lot of possibilities here, but I personally hope whatever happens, Black Mage still has good optimization with MP ticks. It's also not a huge secret that to unlock Black Mage's full potential in terms of rotation building, you basically need to use a third-party add-on to track your mana ticks. This is probably the cause of a lot of frustration for players, especially those on consoles, since they can't even use these add-ons. While I do like the mana tick system, I'm definitely biased as a high-end raider and speedrunner, and I've seen a lot of complaints about this from people playing on vanilla clients. For the general average player, it's not a good look to require a third-party tool to play your job at its fullest potential. Fourth, let's talk about Mana Font. Mana Font is currently in a weird spot because it is actually not a super strong OGCD. Being a 120 second cooldown, you'd expect to be able to use it every 2 minutes exactly, but due to the way Black Mage's rotation works, it's actually pretty difficult to keep Mana Font on cooldown, and it results in noticeable Mana Font drift in an encounter. High-level Black Mage players remedy this usually with a scripted rotation using a combination of standard and non-standard lines in order to use Mana Font more effectively in raid buffs. But what if we gave Mana Font the treatment that Red Mage's Manification has? That is, make it a 110 second cooldown, or even a 100 second cooldown. This could help substantially with Mana Font drift. And lastly, in terms of quality of life stuff we could see, this is kind of me just nitpicking here, but I really would like to see Black Mage's AoE radiuses be larger. It's kind of annoying when you're in dungeons and your flares can't hit every dungeon mob, or mobs are just so fat that flares and fouls cast on them can't even spread to other enemies. So I would like to see those increase as well. So given all of this, here's some possibilities for things I think we could get in Dawntrail in terms of new skills and traits. First, enhanced Enochian 4. Let's face it, we've been getting Enochian upgrades every expansion. We're at 23% right now, and it's probably going to go up again in Dawntrail, maybe to 28% or even 30%, who knows. But I think it's highly likely that we will see an enhanced Enochian trait as one of the traits we'll get from level 92 to 100. Next, enhanced Mana Font 2. I think this could either be a cooldown reduction like I talked about earlier, or some sort of status effect gained when you use Mana Font that buffs your Fire 4 or Despair potency, similar to how Enhanced Flare works. If they do something like this, I'd want Despair's potency to be higher than Xenoglossy once the Astral Fire multipliers are taken into account. I actually think a combination of a lower cooldown and an Enhanced Despair could be cool, which would make Despair the strongest spell in your arsenal under this Mana Font buff, and it would promote usage of Mana Font in buffs. Third, enhanced Paradox. I sure hope that they don't add a Paradox 2, so if enhanced Paradox is a trait, I think it will just add a cleave effect to Paradox, because not being able to use Paradox in your AoE rotation kind of sucks. We don't need extra buttons like Samurai and Warrior have with AoE versions of Shoha and Upheaval, we just need to add a cleave effect to the original Paradox skill. Thunder Mastery 3. We've been using the same dot for so many expansions, and maybe it's time that we'll see an upgrade making Thunder 3 into something like High Thunder 3 with higher potency, or maybe just a different skill altogether like Burst in PvP. And lastly, the trait that I think everyone is thinking about when it comes to Dawntrail Black Mage, Enhanced Polyglot 2. Yeah, let's face it, we're probably going to get a third Polyglot stack. This might even coincide with a change to Amplifier, granting it 2 polyglots instead of 1. Similar to how Gunbreaker had its ammo increased to 3, along with Bloodfest granting 3 charges, all combined into one trait. How about new spells? We would typically see 3 to 4 new spells in Dawntrail at around level 92, 96, and level 100. I think the first thing that comes to mind when they think of a level 100 impactful spell is some sort of super Xenoglossy that would use 2 polyglot stacks. This would provide a powerful nuke and raid buffs, and I would say is pretty likely to happen, to be honest. Level 92 or 96 could be a button to call the ley lines to you, as previously mentioned, an inverse of Between the Lines. It's pretty small in the grand scheme of things, but if fight design keeps necessitating a lot of movement around 2-minute raid buff windows, this could potentially help with maintaining ley lines uptime. I also think they should just replace the ley lines button with this while ley lines is active. However, I think I prefer the idea of a small duration, refreshing buff when you stay in ley lines so that there is still some skill expression in terms of placing it correctly. One thing they could add and expand on is actually the job gauge itself. We've had Astral Fire 3 and Umbralize 3 for expansions now, but what if they really wanted to lean into the 2-minute meta and give Black Mage a steroid buff that granted them Astral Fire 4 for say 15 or 20 seconds? Maybe call it Astral Soul. This would boost their damage on Fire 4 and Despair, and also promote better buff play. In any case, I think we'll find out more in the coming 14-hour broadcast in April. If they do show any gameplay footage, Yoshi P usually is on Black Mage, so maybe we'll see some new icons on his hotbar and begin to make some educated guesses based on that. But for now, we'll wait till the media tour, which is likely going to be 1 to 2 months before the expansion comes out. I will definitely make another video talking about Black Mage once we know more about how it will play in 7.0 with new skills. What do you think we'll see for Black Mage and Dawntrail? Let me know in the comments what you think. Thanks for watching.